particular Saturday marked the official end of a heat wave with moderate temps, low humidity, and a near cloudless sky. It had motorcycle riding written all over it. The only piece missing to this day was my wife Denise, who was away for the weekend. Sullivan and Delaware counties of New York were on tap for this ride. The roads up there are gorgeous and quiet, but I did have an ulterior motive for choosing the area. 3 micro distilleries were in the path of my route, as it was time to stock up for the summer with some superior spirits this area of the state is known for. Unlike most of our rides where we're off on our own, I was to meet Keith and Mary on their Kawasaki Voyager and Ashton on her Yamaha Roadstar. I was to lead the group to the 3 distilleries and a loop around the Pep Actin Reservoir. Some areas I've been to before, others not. But I trusted New York State to deliver great riding nonetheless. We started the day with the 29 miles Route 402 offers, as it spans Monroe and Pike counties of Pennsylvania. Assigned its route number in 1929, we rode it from its start at the junction of 209 to just shy of its end at Route 6 by exiting onto Route 84 to pick up 434 in Lord's Valley. 434 turned into 55 as it crosses the border into New York State, and the temps dropped slightly as we rolled further north, almost to the point where it could be slightly chilly, but not quite. Route 55 will take you all the way up to 17B in Bethel, but a large corner can be eliminated on your way to the Catskills Distillery by making a left onto the smaller and more scenic Dr. Duggan Road. For this day, the Dr. Duggan Road included a close-up view of a deer as added scenery. I had just turned my camera back on and glanced to my right, only to look back and see the deer coming from my left. It happened so fast, I didn't even have the time to worry about it. I grabbed a fistful of brakes at the last moment, and it was just enough to put enough space between us for him to slip by. That was the closest I've come to a deer on a bike, period. I hope that record will stand forever. Fortunately, it was time for a break after that episode, as the Catskill Distillery was almost in sight, and it was time to stop and pick up another bottle of their fine spirits. Monty Sachs is the owner and distiller who, while attending veterinary school in Italy, learned the art of distilling on the side. Today, he operates a beautiful place, complete with a store outfitted with a bar from the 1939 World's Fair and the Dancing Cat Saloon with outstanding food. This is my 3rd trip here. Their spirits are that good. Hints of the 60s are scattered around the grounds with its famous peace sign out front, which tells you you're just across the street from the site of the 1969 Woodstock concert. I loaded the bike with a bottle of their Fearless Straight whiskey, and we all headed over to the concert field and got a look at the monument which was put there in 1984. Once a farm, the field now has the museum at Bethel Woods and the Bethel Woods Center for the Arts in the background. It's interesting how a site chosen out of near desperation for a planned concert event went on to become a maintained landmark, complete with an art center and a museum commemorating that day. Next year is the 50th anniversary. One article I've read claims that Michael Lang has revealed plans for a possible 50th anniversary concert that August. It was time now to head to Roscoe, New York to visit the Prohibition Distillery. We left the concert field by way of Herd Road, and I had my GPS bark out the orders to Jim Stephenson Road, then a right onto Bear Road, a left onto 144 to Route 52 North. A very nice road in great condition with hardly any traffic at all. This brought us to the little town of Youngsville. It was one of those towns you're riding out of almost before you realize you're in it. It was very hard to find any information on this area. The most significant place seems to be the Clare Inn here on my right. It's still open today, and it appears there's some rich history with this building. From there, it was a left onto 149 and another left onto Huber Road. Huber went to Gulf Road and finally Stewart Brook Road into the town of Roscoe. Most of these roads were very secluded, making a rider feel that they had the pavement all to themselves. An occasional farm or home trickled by us as we rolled along at a relaxed pace. The day was so pristine there was no need to rush anything. Roscoe was called Westfield Flats in 1789. It was the home of the Delaware Indians, where wolves once roamed freely. It's named after the late Senator Roscoe Conkling, who served from March of 1867 to May of 1881. Its 2010 census revealed a population of only 541 people. We pulled into the Prohibition Distillery, a 1929 firehouse with an outdoor bar and a 20s style store inside. This would be my second visit here as I grabbed a bottle of their bourbon and another glance at their distilling equipment, which is one of the more sizable setups I've seen among all the micro distilleries I've visited. We took a walk down Stewart Ave and stopped in at Raimondo's for lunch, where Ashton was generous enough to pay for the lunch. It was a crowded place and we had to wait a bit for the food, but it was excellent. From here, it was time for the second half of the trip, which was to start with a ride around the Pep Actin Reservoir. We left Roscoe by way of 206 North, where we would go right onto Route 30 to take the reservoir loop. This reservoir was formed by impounding a quarter of the east branch of the Delaware River. New York City purchased the valley it's made from in 1942 and displaced 974 people and destroying 4 towns in the process. Arena, Pep Actin, Shavertown, and Union Grove were all wiped out. It also submerged half of the Delaware and Northern Railroad in the process. The dam, which is located in Downsville, PA, was finished in 1954, and the flooding was complete in 1955. It's 15 miles long and about 7/10 of a mile wide at its widest point. It supplies New York City with 25% of its drinking water. The name of this body of water comes from a Lenape Native American term, which means marriage of waters. It's a beautiful place for a ride, and I soon noticed a collection of motorcycle headlights in my mirrors as we went along. It's obviously a popular place among riders. After the bridge, I left Route 30 to make a left onto BWS Road number 4. I had hoped to then go left on BWS Road 7, but it came up sooner than I anticipated, and I don't think the sign had quite the exact name on it anyway. I continued straight on BWS 4, which turned into Tremperskill Road, and as a consequence, we didn't make it to Downsville to see the Downsville Bridge. This 174-foot bridge was built in 1854, spans the east branch of the Delaware River in Downsville, New York, and it was designed by a Scottish immigrant named Robert Murray. It's now the longest covered bridge in New York since the 232-foot Blenheim Bridge was destroyed by the tropical storm Irene in 2011. We'll have to see it another time, as I was too busy getting lost and taking us up to the town of Andes. I knew I was a bit lost, but forged on with the thought that eventually we'd make it to Walton, New York, for the final distillery visit. The settlement of Andes began in 1784. We didn't spend any time in this spot, but it seemed to be a quaint little town worth stopping in someday in the future. I did learn after the ride that Susan Day, of the Partridge Family fame, moved to the town in 2007 and still resides there today. I went on through Andes only to stumble upon an area I was lost at just about a month ago. It was then I realized where I was and thought it would be a good time to take a short break and take in the view. Heading eastward on Route 28 out of Andes will bring you to Finkel Road and the start of the Palmer Hill Trail. At this spot, one can get a remarkable view of the forever wildlands protected for the public by New York State's Constitution. New York City also protects the land in this area that feeds its water supply. More than 500,000 acres throughout the Catskills have been preserved to provide clean drinking water and expansive wildlife habitat, outdoor recreation, and solitude. We made the decision to backtrack into Andes to get some gas and recalculate our route to Walton, New York. There was one gas station in Andes, and I led the group into the lot only to discover they were closed. After asking someone for directions to another station, we made the 15-mile trek to Delhi, New York. Delhi was named after the city Delhi, the capital territory of India. It had a population of 5,117 at the 2010 census, and it's the setting for the classic 1959 novel My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. Born in 1919, Jean's resume boasts over 100 books for children and young adults during her rich career. It's beyond the scope of this video, but it may be worth the while to read up on her life, as she seemed to be a remarkable person. After our gas stop, we turned left onto Delhi's Main Street, which is Route 10 South, to make our way to Walton, New York. Route 10 really opened up nicely after getting out of town, and once again it was almost as if we had a road to ourselves. Along the way, we passed the Saputo Dairy Company, founded in 1954 by the Saputo family. Today, it's one of the top 10 dairy processors in the world. They operate in Canada, the U.S., Argentina, and Australia. Their products get sold in over 40 countries worldwide. William Walton was born in 1706 and was the son of Captain William and Mary Walton. The young William followed his father in the shipping and mercantile business and became a well-known figure in the colony of New York. His nephew of the same name owned 22,000 acres, which most of it becoming what is known as Walton, New York today. It's the birthplace of William B. Ogden, the first mayor of Chicago and the founder of the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad line. A computer programmer, abstract watercolor painter, and distiller, Cheryl Linz owns and operates the Delaware Phoenix Distillery in the town of Walton, New York. While searching for distilleries to visit in 2017, I came upon her website and was instantly intrigued by her diverse and artistic background and impressed by her notoriety with articles in such papers as the New York Times, interview on podcast and YouTube videos. She's an expert in the spirit known as absinthe. Known in historical literature as the Green Fairy, it was once outlawed, but in recent years made legal. It is a highly alcoholic beverage derived from botanicals. You'll find wormwood stalks, fennel, anise, hyssop, lemon balm, lemon thyme, and even violet in her shop that are mostly organic and local, with some being homegrown as well. Around the corner from Cheryl's distillery is Breaky's Liquor Store on Bridge Street, who sells Cheryl's products. I decided to stop there first before seeing if Cheryl was at her place, and it was a good thing I did. I asked the woman behind the counter where Cheryl's spirits were, and she pointed them out while saying the words, "What I have left." When asking what that meant, she informed me that Cheryl was in a bad car accident and it was unknown if she would return to her distillery someday. Cheryl had already stopped making her whiskeys this year, sticking only to her varieties of absinthe. I grabbed one of the remaining bottles of her rye, as this most likely will never be made again. I also grabbed a bottle of her absinthe, as I asked more questions about Cheryl. I found nothing about this accident and have no idea if this distillery will operate again. Prayers go out to Cheryl for a speedy recovery. Perhaps someday I'll get a chance to meet her another time. With all my destinations reached for the day, it was time to leave this town and start thinking of a way back home. It was a successful day thus far, with more running to come, but it's always a bit sad when you reach the point where it's time to head back. We started off by continuing on Route 10 South, which once again opened up into tranquil riding with hardly a hint of other vehicles most of the time. From there we got on to Route 268, another enjoyable road, and then to Route 191 to cross over the Delaware into Pennsylvania from Hancock, New York. This was an area that triggered a flashback for me from 9 years ago. It was the end of a 3-day trip that punished me with the worst rainfall I've ever ridden in. The bridge was so heavily cloaked in fog that night, it felt like I was riding into an abyss, with its beams only showing themselves as I came within several feet of them. Once crossing over in Pennsylvania, the trees overhead seemed like the walls and ceiling of a wet cave as water rushed across my face shield. Today was a welcome contrast to the last time I rode this area, as the day was taking on its later afternoon look. Incorporated as a borough in 1831, Honesdale, Pennsylvania, would be the last significant town we'd ride through that day. Named after Philip Hone, former mayor of New York City and president of Honesdale's Delaware and Hudson Canal Company, it offers boating, fishing, hunting, skiing, skateboarding, and rafting. It's a very pretty town with hundreds of Victorian-age structures. We turned onto the Owego Turnpike outside of Honesdale, which brought us across the top of Lake Wallenpaupack on Route 590 and Route 6, with a turn onto 402 South for our final leg before separating for the day. Distilleries, reservoirs, whatever it may be, New York State always delivers a most satisfying day of riding. It was now time to go relax on the deck and open some of these New York spirits.